That's exactly right.
Good evening. We are going to begin tonight, before we call this meeting to order, with a proclamation. And Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you, please, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm just going to ask the Colonel to come up here with me. And while she's on her way up, I'd just say a special thank you to Councilwoman Smith for organizing this for us. So if I can just get you to come right over here with me. So we'll simply read the proclamation, and then as I understand, your team will present the colors.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I have my marching orders from the Colonel. Whereas the mission of the Air Force JROTC is to develop citizens of good character, dedicated to serving their nation and community. And whereas Air Force JROTC programs have a lifelong positive impact on the cadets who participate and prepare students to lead positive, productive, and rewarding lives by teaching personal responsibility, enhancing leadership skills, experiencing the value of teamwork, and discovering the benefits of self-confidence. And whereas the Air Force JROTC cadets are never under any obligation to join the military and graduate not only as accomplished students, but as globally minded and responsible citizens. And whereas the Homewood Air Force JROTC wing has been active since 1971 and is one of the oldest in the country. It's grounded in the Air Force core values of an integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And whereas the Homewood Air Force JROTC is involved in community service activities such as presenting the colors at all Homewood High School football games, leading the Veterans Day program at Homewood Middle School, leading the Black History program at Homewood High School, along with marching in parades such as Homecoming, Christmas, and We Love Homewood Day. This year, activities also included a march around the school in honor of September 11th. Cadets participated in cyber team and academic bowl teams. During the summer, a select group of cadets attended a junior cadet leadership course camp at Fort McClellan, where they participated in drill competitions, obstacle course, and rappelling activities. And whereas the Air Force JROTC wing is led by Senior Aerospace Science Instructor Michael H. Morgan, Colonel, United States Air Force, and Aerospace Inspector Vincent Simmons. So now, therefore, I, Scott McBrayer, Mayor of the City of Homewood, hereby commend the outstanding work of the dedicated professionals instructing the program and encourage more Homewood students to explore the wonderful opportunity that participation in the Air Force JROTC provides. And Colonel, thank you and your team for your service to the City of Homewood. Okay, thank you. And y'all can give her a hand. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right, what we thought we would do is, if you'll all stand with me, and I'll offer the invocation, and then we're going to turn it over to our junior ROTC color guard. Bow with me, please. Lord God, we come to you this evening so thankful for the many, many blessings and resources you give us here in Homewood. We're thankful for these people, each and every one who serves so diligently your community, represented by not only this dais, but this room as a whole. Lord God, guide us, bless us, and keep us safe. All of this I lift up in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Carry colors. Forward, march. Left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, Pose. Colors. Guards, haste. Present arms.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Return, post. Forward, march. Left, 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 right, left, 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 left. No guard. Law. Dismissed.
Mayor, thank you. Colonel and young women and men, we are so appreciative of your commitment. Thank you so much. We will now call this meeting to order, and Ms. Salter, if we could begin with a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Here.
Mr. Thames? Mr. Higginbotham?
Here.
Mr. Wolverton?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey? Mr. Jones? Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. Andress?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Here, we do have a quorum. The next item is the reading of minutes. Am I reading this correctly? We have two sets of minutes.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. Chair would welcome a motion for approval of the reading of the minutes from January 22nd, 2018, and to dispense of reading said minutes.
I would make that motion.
Motion from Ms. Smith, second from Mr. Higginbotham. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Also, we have the reading of the minutes of January 29th, 2018. And again, the chair would welcome a motion for approval and a dispensing of the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Ms. Smith. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that too is unanimous. We'll move on to board vacancies. I understand that we have at least one that's going to be announced tonight.
Yes, we need to open.
Ms. Andrus?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We need to open Ward 5 Park Board, please.
Okay, and so we're opening that tonight. And how long is that going to be open for?
Is 2 weeks, is that enough time? 2 weeks until the next council meeting?
Y'all's pleasure on that. That's fine.
Yes, till next, for 2 weeks.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much. Do we have any other vacancies to approve? Any recommendations? Okay, good. All right, let's see, we have one item to amend the agenda. It's a committee referral item. It's 270218, which is a request to address traffic concerns on Short Oxmoor Road, requested by Mr. Jones. And this would go to public safety as well as finance. We'll go to both committees simultaneously. And at this point, that is.
We have one more, sir. That
sorry.
280218, the request to discuss design review board.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
There is actually one other, we may go this may be out of order, but the item that's on the consent agenda that we're going to refer back to
Yes,
special issues.
what we'll do is we'll modify
The consent.
consent
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
No problem. We're good on that. So, but thank you, Ms. Salter. All right, so we've got that one item to add. Chair would welcome a motion and second for amending the agenda. Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from
Second.
Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Your chair would welcome a motion for approving the consent agenda with the amendment that 220218, request for consideration for small cell tower at corner of Aspen Drive, requested by Mr. Greg Cobb, be re-sent back to special issues because just genuine miscommunication between the company that was wanting it. And they showed up earlier thinking that they were coming to a committee meeting, so these sort of things happen.
All right, I
Chair-
would move to approve the amended consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Second from Mr. Wright. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Hold on 1 minute. We're gonna, if I can figure out how to do it, which I may not can, we're gonna take a couple of items out of order. 110218 under, well, 110218 under old business, request for consideration for permission to work in the city right-of-way at 1914 28th Avenue South, requested by Tommy Holcomb, Greg Cobb in the BEZ department. How about a report from special issues?
Yes, we met last week and heard from Mr. Holcomb, and we voted 4-0 to recommend sending this item out sending it out for approval pending the indemnification agreement for them to work in the right-of-way in front of their business at 1914 28th Avenue South.
Great. So we have a motion from special issues. Do we have anything else on this particular item to discuss? Comments, questions? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is Resolution 1821, and that is passed unanimously. And thank you, Mr. Holcomb. Though you're welcome to stay all night if you want to. Okay, good. I like that. All right, so we'll go back to the beginning of old business agenda, 311117, which is the public hearing continued from February 12, 2018 at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at 2516 17th Street South. Mr. Pugh, why don't you give us an update on this one?
Over the past couple of weeks, I've met a couple of times with Mr. Korobianikov. Took me a while to learn to say
Congratulations.
that.
Congratulations, I'm
Thank you.
impressed.
But he's done quite a bit of work since the last time we talked. Pretty much every nice weather day we've had, he's had a crew out there working. So at this point, I don't see any point in trying to hold him up. I mean, he is moving forward.
And we do have pictures.
And you do have pictures, yes, sir, and there are some up on the monitor as well.
All right, well, good. Any questions for Mr. Pugh? And I'm going to put you on the spot. Any comments from you, Mr. Gwaltney?
No, I'm certainly glad that they've moved forward and cleared up most of the issues. They've cleared up everything that we were concerned with in the beginning that brought about the abatement case.
Well, yes, they have.
And you said you're comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with the rate at which he's moving. Now, if he backs off, we may have to talk about it again, but yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, Chair would welcome a motion for dropping.
Move to drop.
Point of order, I think we're still in this, didn't we just continue?
Well, I'm sorry, wait a second. Public hearing's closed. Yeah. No, you're right, excuse me, my fault. Okay. So, Chair would welcome, well, I've got a motion from Mr. Wright. Second from Mr. Gwaltney. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous, and that is Resolution 18. Do we need a resolution for that?
No, sir.
Okay, well then, that is not a resolution, and that is a drop. Okay. Now, 1901-18, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 2531 18th Place South, requested by Mr. Pugh, and we will begin by opening this public hearing, and Mr. Pugh, come forward.
Yes, sir. I've given you all pictures showing the condition of the house. It's an easy candidate for condemnation. Animals have gained access to it. There's feral cats living in there. The place absolutely reeks of cats. I don't see any way to repair the dilapidation that's happened to this house. In my opinion, and my recommendation would be to demolish this house. I did post it again on February the 8th, that a public hearing would be tonight. I was by there today. It's still standing wide open, but the postings have been torn down. I expected someone might be here, but it doesn't appear that way.
Mr. Wolverton?
This one had been brought before, correct?
We were going to bring it before, but it was an incorrect address. The first notice had been sent to an incorrect address, so I resent it in November. I did get the certified mail card back signed in December,
Okay.
signed by the owner, so they were aware
It's just
of
taking
it.
this long to hit the agenda.
Yes,
Okay. I thought the pictures I recognized, so.
yeah.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Pugh?
Who's the owner?
Any other comments?
Dennis P. White is the owner, but I've never met him. Yes, the address was here in Rosedale.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to or address this item? There being no one else, we will close this public hearing and welcome any comments or a motion from the council.
I'll make a motion to just continue with the labeling, sorry,
Condemnation.
with the condemnation and
I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Wolverton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gwaltney. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that will be Resolution 1822. Okay, thank you. All right, 040218, public hearing set for March 12, 2018, for consideration of the zoning application of the City of Homewood to rezone 1700 and 1708 29th Court South from C1 and C4 to I2 for the purpose to rezone two parcels in order to have consistent zoning on multiple properties, allowing for future development. This request was considered by Homewood Planning Commission at its February 6th meeting, resulting in a favorable recommendation by a vote of 6-0. We will carry this over and set this public hearing, as I said, for March 12th. All right, 150218, public hearing set for March 12th at 6 p.m. for a variance to the sign ordinance at 1045 Broadway Park, requested by Candace Watson, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department, and that public hearing is set for March 12th, 2018 at 6 p.m. 160218, public hearing set for March 12th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for a fence variance at 1810 25th Court South to allow 15 feet of netting on top of a 5 feet chain link fence requested by Vanessa McGrath, and that too is set for March 12th, 2018 at 6 p.m. Now, and carried over. 170218, public hearing set for March 12th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for a variance to the sign ordinance at 234 Green Springs Highway, requested by Park Grimmer, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. My understanding is that the request is that this be dropped, and therefore I'll take the liberty of dropping and canceling this public hearing. And Mr. Kendrick will direct Ms. Salter to do just that, right?
Yes, sir. You probably need to vote to drop it.
Okay, we'll vote to drop it. I'm sorry. Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Ms. Andrus.
Mr. Wright?
Mr. Wright, I'm sorry. Well, we sound alike. You do sound alike. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Yes, they do speak with one voice. Well said.
We do speak, we do.
All right. We'll move on to 070218, request for consideration to amend the 1718 budgets fiscal year. Melody Salter, our finance director and city clerk. Report from finance. Who's reporting finance out? Mr. Wright.
I am. The Finance Committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of this item. The motion was made by the preeminent Counselor Wright and seconded by Counselor Higginbotham. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion from Finance. Do we have any further discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is Resolution 1823, and it passes unanimously. All right, so we move on to 100218, request for consideration of declaring miscellaneous fire department property, primarily hoses and furniture. Is that correct, Chief? As surplus, requested by Chief Bresnan, our fire department, and report from Finance. Mr. Wright.
Yes, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval with additions to this list sent by Gordon Janes from the Fleet Department and list of items in the Fire Department handed out by Chief Bresnan. The motion was made by Counselor Smith and seconded by Counselor Hickenbottom.
All right, thank you, sir. First reading, Mr. Kendrick.
Yes, sir. It's an ordinance to declare certain personal property and equipments as surplus. Hereby established and declared the following described personal property described in Exhibit A is no longer needed for public or municipal purposes and therefore declared surplus property. The description is about seven pages of hoses and some miscellaneous equipment by Mr. James. Section 2, that the mayor be and authorized to dispose of the property by auction to the highest bidder.
Thank you, sir. All right, Chair needs a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
Move for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Wright, second from Ms. Andrus. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes. So the chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption of ordinance 2687. Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton? Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes. So 2687 passes unanimously, and we'll move on to 120218. Request for consideration of discussion on City of Homewood's role in service to the homeless, put forth by Mr. Higginbotham and Mr. Wright. Report from Finance.
Yes, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval to send to the mayor for budget discussion and consideration of funding one roof at the appropriate time for the budget process. The motion was made by Councilor Hickenbotham and seconded by Councilor Smith.
All right, so we have a motion and a second from Finance. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will send that to you, Mayor. Okay, 140218, request for consideration of funding irrigation repairs at 1800 Mayfair Drive, requested by Marcus Casimas, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. Report from Finance, Mr. Wright.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approval after discussion with Mr. Cobb and Mr. Casimas to be funded from small infrastructure line item in the Capital Projects Fund. The motion was made by Councilor Wright and seconded by Councilor Smith.
All right, good. So again, we have a motion and a second from Finance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is Resolution 1824, and that too is unanimous. Okay, 160115, update on past, present, and future sidewalk projects. This is ongoing, requested by Jim White in our BEZ department. Continues to be carried over, but we do need a report from planning and development about one particular project, and who's going to do that? Mr. Wright, I believe it's your night.
I believe it is, and I'm sorry, that is item
160115, it'd be on the 20th.
160115. There should be something on there.
I have it.
Great.
The Planning and Development Committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of schematic D to council and also to leave this item in committee for further actions. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Wyatt.
All right, well, good, thank you. We're going to send this to Finance for approval, and we will, Ms. Salter, add that to
Yes,
their
sir.
items. Good, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, 020218, request for consideration of the quarterly report from the Chamber of Commerce, and again, a report from Finance.
I'm sorry, that actually should be P and D, but
Oh,
it's still
P and
Council
D.
Wright. Yes, sir.
P&D?
This is what happens when you take a telephone call from Brett Thames, and he's working, he's
I
covering both
understand.
committees. So,
Next thing you know,
just-
you're burdened
I don't want,
with-
I'm happy to share this love with anyone. The Planning and Development Committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend to council accepting this report made by Meredith Drennan with the Chamber of Commerce. The motion was made by Councilor Wyatt and seconded by Councilor Andrus.
All right, very good. Is there any other discussion on this? If there is not, all in favor of approval of this acceptance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is done. 050218, request for consideration to close off portion of Reese Street between Central Avenue and Crescent on Sunday, March 18th from 12:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the Homewood Athletic Foundation's Cornapalooza. Did I pronounce that right, Mr. White? Okay. Requested by Mr. White. Report from Public Safety. Are you still reporting everything, Mr. Wright?
I've actually got.
Oh, there we go. Good.
Mixing it
Mr. White.
He took a phone call.
That's right. The Public Safety Committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend approval. The motion was made by Councilor Thames and seconded by Councilor Andrus.
All right. Thank you very much. So we have the motion from Public Safety. If there is any discussion, please speak forth. There not being, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is Resolution 1825. Is that correct, Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 171015, request for consideration of noise and odor problems from Buffalo Rock and Mayfield Barbers, requested by various West Homewood area residents and Fred Hawkins, which dates it. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, the committee met last week and voted 4-0 to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with the consultants at Newfields to work on an as-needed basis to be paid out of contractual services in Department 11. And the motion was made by Mr. Higginbotham and seconded by Ms. Andrus. And again, that was a 4-0 vote to approve that. But I do want to amend that to keep the item on the agenda in Special Issues Committee, please.
Right. So, we have a motion from Special Issues as it relates to a contract. Any questions about that? If there is not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is passed unanimously. Resolution 1826. All right. 041217, request for consideration of funding for a sidewalk project with stonework at 1808 Mayfair Drive, requested by Jonathan Pennington and Peter Wright. Report from Public Works, Mr. Wright.
And, Mr. President, I can happily do the report. I would like to request if this could be carried over for one meeting.
Okay. we
I
can
don't
do
know
that.
if you would still like the report, or,
That's not necessary.
Okay.
We'll carry that over.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, no problem. All right, committee referral agenda. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval. Motion from Mr. Waltley,
There's not a lot.
second from Mr. Wolverton. Thank you very much. I'm 65. The hearing's slowly but surely going. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the committee referral agenda is approved. All right, so we'll move on to other new business. We only have 3 items. 240218, request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer on and off premises and an ABC 060 retail table wine on and off premises for 655th Place LLC, doing business as the Lucky Cat Rolled Creams at 2908 18th Street South, requested by Melody Salter. And my understanding, do we have a public safety? I don't think we do. Anyway, I'm told we already have letters of no objections from both fire and police.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And it didn't go to public safety, it came straight on the new business.
Right, I understand why. So the chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval. Motion from Mr. White, second from Mr. Gwaltney. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Do we need a resolution for that?
No, sir, we usually don't do resolutions
Just
for
approve
those.
it. Okay, that's right. All right, 250218, request to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with the Homewood Chamber of Commerce for partnering with them to share in the cost of Daniel Communities funding, requested by Melody Salter. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Wright. Any further discussion? If we have none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is Resolution 1827, and it passes unanimously. Final item is 260218, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for the period of February 12th, 2018 through February 25th, 2018, requested by the city clerk and our finance committee. I understand Mr. Thames studied these.
He
but I need
did.
someone from finance to tell me they're okay.
Yes, I did speak with Mr. Thames, and he did, with the exception of one item we're pulling out for some discussion on some school project expenditures, which will come up in our committee meetings, just a little process issues we got to get clear on. But other than that, everything was approved by Mr. Thames.
Great. So we have a motion from Mr. Wright. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Gwaltney. Any further discussion? There be none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that is Resolution 1828. We now move to that portion of our meeting when we turn to the mayor and say, Mayor, you get the floor. I said, you get the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just in the way, a couple of announcements. This Saturday, March 3rd, will be the Exceptional Foundation's Chili Cook-Off from 10 until 3 at Brookwood Mall. Of course, all proceeds go into the our friends over at the Exceptional Foundation. So I was told, I think they have 146 teams this year, which is just amazing.
Sir, I'm a judge, but I can promise you I'm not going to taste 246.
We'll be there handing out Gaviscon, whatever you need. But so thank you for doing that. And then also wanted to announce, as you know, a while back, Mike Brandt rolled off the Planning Commission. So there's been a vacancy, and tonight I just want to announce the appointment of Stuart Roberts to the Planning Commission.
Good choice.
Most of you know Stuart. He and his wife Lauren are longtime residents of Homewood, live on Edgewood Boulevard there, and he's been serving as the supernumerary position to the BZA. And then at the council's earliest convenience, once you have a chance to appoint someone in his position to the BZA, he would like to come off of it, and he'll start serving immediately on the Planning Commission. So had a good talk with him and certainly appreciate his service to the city of Homewood and his family's service to the city of Homewood for being without him a few nights while they're having the meeting. So we'll get out all the stuff that we need to, making that appointment, contacting the appropriate people. But when you do have a chance, make sure you tell Robert thank you for serving. Mr. President, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Right, we're going to change up the order for comments here. Yes. No.
Is this going to be a permanent change, Mr. President?
Anything's possible. Who could predict the future? I'm going to begin with Ms. Smith.
Yes, okay, first of all, finance will be at 5,
Yes,
as is predetermined.
for 45 minutes.
Yes, for 45 minutes, so 5 to 4, 5:45. So I'm going to do special issues, 5:45 to 6. I think I can get mine done in 15 minutes.
Very good.
And I wanted to say, the mayor and President Limbaugh and Ms. Andrus and I had the good fortune of going to Miss Werner's first grade class at Shades Cahaba Elementary last week for their presentations on the things that they loved most about Homewood. And it was the sweetest thing. Adorable children who had put a lot of effort into it. And I made sure to tell Chief Ross and Chief Bresnan that both the police department and the firemen were well recognized among the first grade class. But it was a lot of fun. I was glad to be able to do that. It was a sweet group of kids. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Ms. White?
Do I need to set public safety for Mr. McCluskey? 2 items. So
15 minutes.
So we'll set that for 6 o'clock. And just a couple other quick things. March 8th, Taste of Homewood, Homewood Chamber of Commerce. We'll put that on downstairs. It'll start at 5:30. Encourage everyone to go, and I think they're having even more food and beer vendors than usual. So go down and enjoy that. And then March 18th, the Homewood Athletic Foundation will be having Cornapalooza at Red Hills Brewery. If you want to play, you can sign up for a team for $400, or if it's just a team of 2, or if you just want to come and hang out and have a special Homewood AF beer that Red Hills is producing and some food from La Paz, that will cost you $10 a ticket just to hang out and have some good food and beer and watch some people play cornhole. And then lastly, just wanted to thank our 2 state senators, Jabbo Wagner and Roger Smitherman. The lid bill continues to move its way through the legislature. It has made its way through the Senate committees and will be brought to the floor, if all goes well, tomorrow morning, and hopefully will be passed at that time. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I appreciate them doing that, and obviously still Representative Faulkner and Representative Rogers for getting it through the House beforehand.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Andrus?
I just want a Homewood AF T-shirt. So-
You want a t-shirt, we got those too.
I've already got mine.
I wanted to announce that on March the 17th at the high school, the Homewood Athletics fundraiser will be taking place. It is a mattress fundraiser like we did a few years ago. They will have anything from $250 up to $5,000. They've got pillow tops, plush tops, memory foam, gel, latex. They've got pillows. They've got bed protectors. Anything you need. They do have layaway and financing options, and all of 30 to 50% off retail, and all purchases are going to go to the high school and the middle school athletic programs, specifically golf and tennis for the high school. So come by. It's March 17th at the high school in the gym, and the hours, let's see, it's during the day. It's during the day on March the 17th. So anyway, we got a mattress there the last time they did that, and it's been great. And so it benefits the schools, and so come on out.
Thank you. Mr. Wright? Now you can actually have Public Works is not the last committee now.
I know. Second to last, so thank you so much for that privilege.
He'll pay for that.
All right, and pardon the pause, I'm trying to figure out if we will go ahead and set Public Works, just so I can have the opportunity to be the second to last for 6:15. Is that okay for public safety? Will be okay. At 6:15, and we may not have much to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and set P&D for 6:20, if that's okay.
Wow.
and P&D may have one item, but if Mr.
Two items, I talked to him
Mr.
today. There's two items.
Okay,
And they're
okay.
small.
It's going to be
No,
some degree of time
Okay,
consuming.
so if Mr. Thames decides he doesn't need to have it, he can deal with that. But I think right now we'll go ahead and line it up for 6:20.
Is it 6:20?
Yes, 6:20. A couple of things. I want to, I appreciate Alex pointing out the progress with the lid bill legislation, and I want to thank him for his help and leadership on that, and echo his comments for legislative support. I actually saw Mr. Faulkner over the weekend down in Tuscaloosa, and he reported optimistic this will all take place this week. So we're all very encouraged about that very meaningful piece of legislation for our city. One other thing I want to mention is, and I want to thank the mayor and my fellow council members with regard to the SRO officers that have been placed in all of our additional ones have been placed in our schools. I know we have all heard from our residents. I've heard from many of them, received emails, a couple phone calls, and also I had a phone call today with Dr. Cleveland, and he just wanted to thank the mayor, thank the council for their support, for caring. He really wanted to express this, and Mr. Mayor also wanted to say how proud he is and thrilled he is with the work and the leadership of the police department and how they've handled this and how they've brought about a lot of leadership and comfort during some testy days there for all of us, and to get those additional officers. And the schools are just very, very pleased with the city's support and leadership on these issues, Mr. Mayor. And I thank you for that, and my fellow council members for supporting those efforts as well. So I just wanted to convey that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Wright.
Mr. Limbaugh, can I mention one final thing?
Sure.
Just one other thing. Just real quickly. The Homewood Arts Council is having an opening reception for their Youth Arts Months, which is usually when they display artwork from the different Homewood schools.
Right.
And that is this Thursday night from 5 to 6 downstairs.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Just a couple of things. I wanted to thank the council since we finished up our last abatement issue tonight. Thank you for your support. Helping us move through it. We've already seen the positive effects in Rosedale and other parts of Homewood, but the neighbors over there definitely expressed their excitement that we're paying attention and taking care of their little properties and doing good stuff for the neighborhood. So I appreciate your support. Next, with regards to the library, Ms. Fountain and I were talking about the NASA At My Library grant that they received. They have the teen librarian is attending some training this week that will allow Homewood's libraries to become certified to check out meteorite and lunar disk samples. The schools can then come and access or be taken to the school, so it's a pretty big deal. I don't think there's any other library in the state that has this certification, so it's just another checkbox in Homewood's favor for things the library is doing for our schools and for our citizens.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Mr. Wolverton?
Just a few things. We've got probably Homewood's newest business this week. Should be opening Nexus Fitness right off of Oxmoor. So I think that's a really exciting thing to see. I know there's a lot of excitement for several of the residents over there, as well as the business owner has a lot of people from Hoover and Vestavia that are kind of following him there. So I really think the timing with the pizzeria and everything else is really going to bring a lot of good publicity on that side of Homewood, and all the new exciting things that are going on there. I wanted to thank Miss Connie Collins, who's a preschool teacher. She kind of helped start and continues to help run the preschool program for Homewood. On the teaching side of things, I got to come. This month is Community Helpers Day, or month, sorry. And so I've been excited to hear about the police officers and firefighters that have been coming, and they were kind enough to let me come and kind of talk about what I do at Children's and share a little bit there. So that was fun. Kind of like what Barry was saying, 4-year-olds are pretty darn cute. So, and then secondly, you know, I had a lot of people that were very thankful for, you know, the city and the police department kind of stepping up to help equip the schools during this time. And I did have a question, I guess, for anybody that isn't. I hadn't heard anything about the Exceptional Foundation basketball game, and last year it was around this time. It was in the next week or two. Did they ever
Ms. Salter,
challenge
could
us this
you-
year, or?
They may not have. Can you call and ask them?
Okay.
We'll update it soon.
So
Okay?
I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wolverton. I had the privilege today at lunch of meeting with Senator Wagner and Representative Rogers, and both are enthusiastic in their support of the wishes of this organization to move this lid bill through. And so it is encouraging to interact and have that information from them. And yes, Ms. Smith, and I never get to say the fun things first, but that really was special. And but I will point out that the first graders were just as interested in the ice cream and donut shops as they were our police and fire folks. So something about sweet tooths and being 6 years old, I'm not quite sure, but that makes perfect sense to me. With that, we will stand adjourned until our next meeting. Thank you.